I never thought my quiet suburban life could unravel so fast. I'm Mary, a 42-year-old wife who thought I had it all figured out. Dinner on the table, a cozy home, and a husband who's been my rock for nearly 2 decades. But beneath the surface of our perfect little world, a storm was brewing, one I didn't see coming until it was too late. It started with an innocent gaming session, a fleeting glance from the boy next door, and a suggestion from my husband that turned my reality upside down. Now, I'm caught in a web of secrets and forbidden desires, teetering on the edge of everything I've ever known. What did I do when temptation came knocking, and how far did it take me? Stick around to find out. Picture this. I'm standing at my kitchen window, the late afternoon sun spilling through the glass, casting long shadows across the counter where I'm peeling carrots for tonight's dinner. The rhythmic scrape of the peeler against the vegetable is almost meditative, a small anchor in the quiet hum of my life. My name's Mary, I'm 42, and this little suburban bubble I've built over the years is my whole world. It's not glamorous, not by a long shot, but it's mine, and I've poured every ounce of myself into making it a home. I've been married to Harry, who's 45, for just shy of 20 years. We've weathered a lot together, moves, job changes, the kind of ups and downs that either break you or bind you tighter. For us, it's been the latter, or at least that's what I tell myself on days like this. Harry's my rock, even if he's more likely to be found parked in his black leather recliner in our cozy living room than doing anything particularly rock-like. That recliner faces a massive flat-screen TV, the centerpiece of his universe. The coffee table in front of him is a mess of game controllers, tangled cords, and empty soda cans, a testament to his endless gaming marathons. There's this faint, constant hum from the console fan, a sound I barely notice anymore. It's just part of the soundtrack of our life. I tease him about it all the time, calling him a big kid with his obsession for virtual battles and quests. Truth is, I don't get the appeal of those games, but seeing his face light up when he talks about a new level he's conquered, that's worth every unwashed dish I end up scrubbing after he's too engrossed to notice the kitchen's a disaster. I'm the practical one in this duo, always bustling around to keep things in order. I'm the one who sweeps up the crumbs, plans the meals, and makes sure the bills are paid on time. Our home, a modest 2-story house tucked into a quiet suburban street, reflects that balance of us. The living room smells faintly of lemon cleaner. I'm obsessive about keeping it tidy despite Harry's chaos, and the walls are lined with framed photos of our life together, snapshots of happier, simpler moments. Outside, the lawn is neatly trimmed, thanks to my weekend efforts, and the garden beds by the porch are bursting with marigolds, their sharp, earthy scent hitting me every time I step out to water them. From the kitchen, I can hear the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, the occasional rumble of a car passing by, and the soft clink of dishes as I set them out for dinner. It's a small, predictable world, but it's ours. Then there's Ethan, the kid next door. He's 22, a college student who moved in about 6 months ago. I don't know much about him beyond the basics. He's got this tousled brown hair that always looks like he just. So, there I was, just finishing up with the carrots at the kitchen counter, when Harry burst in with this big, boyish grin on his face. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that feels like a little gift after a long week. He practically bounced on his feet as he told me he'd invited Ethan over for a gaming session. I couldn't help but smile at his excitement. Harry's passion for those pixelated worlds never fails to remind me of why I fell for him all those years ago. I gave him a quick nod, teasing him about turning our living room into a battleground, and got to work on making their hangout a bit more welcoming. The weather outside was just perfect, warm and sunny, with a light breeze slipping through the open windows, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers from the garden. It rustled the curtains as I moved around the kitchen, pulling together some snacks for the guys. I layered a tray with nachos, piling on extra cheese that melted into gooey perfection under the broiler. I grabbed a bowl and filled it to the brim with crispy chips, the salty aroma making my mouth water. Then I reached into the fridge for a couple of cold sodas, the glass bottles clinking together as I balanced them with the tray. The chill of the glass felt refreshing against my palm as I carried everything to the living room, the sounds of Harry and Ethan already filling the space with energy. They were deep into some multiplayer game by the time I got there, the TV screen a chaotic blur of bright colors and rapid movements. Their voices were loud, overlapping with playful jabs and shouts of victory or frustration. Harry was hunched forward in his recliner, controller gripped like it was a lifeline, while Ethan sat cross-legged on the couch, his focus just as intense. I set the tray down on the coffee table, the clatter of the bottles barely registering over their noise. I couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. It was like watching two kids in a candy store. Harry didn't even glance up, too locked into the action, but Ethan flicked his eyes toward me for a quick thanks. His voice was casual, but there was a fleeting moment in that look that caught me off guard. As I straightened up, smoothing out the hem of my sundress, I noticed his gaze wasn't on my face. It lingered somewhere lower, maybe tracing the outline of the fabric against my frame, or dipping toward the neckline that caught the afternoon light. It wasn't blatant, just a subtle drift of his eyes, but it sent a quick shiver of discomfort through me. I brushed it off almost instantly, telling myself I was imagining things. But then, our eyes met for a split second, and I saw a faint flush creep up his cheeks before he jerked his attention back to the screen, his fingers fumbling on the controller. My heart did a little flip, a strange mix of flattery and unease swirling in my chest. I mean, I'm not blind. I know I'm not some 20-something anymore, but I'm back in the kitchen now, the faint echo of explosions and digital gunfire from the living room filtering through the open doorway. My hands are busy rinsing off the last of the dishes from the snack prep, the cool water a small distraction from the odd moment I just had with Ethan. That look he gave me? It's still lingering in my mind, a puzzle I can't quite solve. I shake my head, trying to focus on the suds and the clink of glass, when I hear the soft creak of the floorboards behind me. I glance over my shoulder, and there's Harry, stepping into the kitchen just a few minutes after I'd left the living room. His face is unreadable, but there's an intensity in his eyes that stops me cold. He doesn't say anything at first, just leans against the counter, arms crossed, watching me with a look I can't quite place. I turn off the faucet, wiping my hands on a dish towel, and face him fully. Before I can ask what's up, he lowers his voice, a hushed tone that tells me he doesn't want Ethan to overhear. "Did you notice the way he was looking at you?" he asks, his words sharp and deliberate. My stomach does a little flip, and I manage a nervous nod, expecting him to be upset or protective, maybe even angry. I mean, I'd felt that flicker of discomfort myself, so I figured Harry must have seen it too. But instead of the reaction I'm bracing for, he catches me completely off guard. His lips curl into a faint, almost mischievous smirk, and he says, "Why don't you take the initiative with him?" I freeze, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. My mouth goes dry, and all I can manage is a stammered, "What do you mean?" I'm searching his face for some sign that he's joking, that this is just some weird test, but his expression stays calm, almost playful. He steps a little closer, his voice still low, and clarifies in a way that makes my head spin. I mean, flirt with him, get a little close, maybe even touch him, just to see what happens. My mind reels, a storm of confusion crashing over me. This is Harry, my husband of nearly 2 decades, suggesting something I never could have imagined coming from him. I'm torn in 100 directions at once, disbelief that he'd even say this, a moral hesitation that screams, "This isn't right," and yet, beneath it all, a surprising spark of curiosity. What is he playing at? Why would he want this? And why does a tiny, reckless part of me want to know where this could go? I stand there for what feels like forever, my thoughts a tangled mess, before I finally give a small, uncertain nod. It's not agreement, not really. It's more about wanting to understand what's driving Harry to push me into this strange territory. He gives me a quick, approving look, then turns back toward the living room, leaving me standing there with my pulse racing. I take a deep breath, steadying myself, and follow a few moments later, my hands trembling just slightly as I step into the familiar space. The TV is still blaring with their game, the chaotic sounds a sharp contrast to the tension building inside me. I slide onto the couch, positioning myself between Harry, who's back in his recliner, and Ethan, who's still focused on the screen. I pick up a spare controller, pretending to join in, though my mind is anywhere but on the game. Then, with a deep breath, I let my other hand rest on Ethan's stomach, the warmth of his skin seeping through the thin fabric of his t-shirt. He freezes instantly, his whole body going rigid under my touch. I glance at him, catching the wide, confused look in his eyes as they dart between my face and the low cut of my blouse. His breath hitches, a small, sharp sound, and I can see the uncertainty written all over him. He doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what this means. Emboldened by the surrealness of it all, by the sheer absurdity of following Harry's suggestion, as I sit here now, reflecting on what happened after that charged moment on the couch, I can still feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. The air in our living room felt thicker somehow, like it was holding its breath right along with me. Ethan didn't linger long after that initial encounter. He mumbled a quick goodbye, barely meeting my eyes as he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. I watched him go, rooted to the couch, my mind a storm of guilt, confusion, and, strangely, a flicker of exhilaration I couldn't quite name. It was as if I'd crossed an invisible line, one I didn't even know existed until I was already on the other side. My heart was still racing, my fingers tingling with the memory of that brief contact, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our quiet little world. That night, as Harry and I lay in bed, the darkness of our bedroom seemed to amplify the tension between us. The familiar creak of the mattress and the soft hum of the ceiling fan couldn't drown out the thoughts swirling in my head. Harry turned to me, his voice low but buzzing with an excitement I hadn't heard in years. He asked how I felt about what had happened, his tone almost proud, like he'd orchestrated some grand achievement. I fumbled for words, my emotions a tangled mess, but he didn't wait for a full answer. With a grin I could feel more than see in the dim light, he suggested we invite Ethan over again next weekend. My stomach twisted at the idea. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut on this whole thing, to go back to our predictable routine of dinners and game nights without these dangerous undercurrents. But another part, a quieter, more reckless part, was intrigued by Harry's enthusiasm, by the forbidden rush that had coursed through me earlier. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his words settle over me like a heavy blanket. The days that followed were a blur of restless thoughts. I'd be in the kitchen, chopping vegetables or wiping down counters, and my mind would drift back to that moment on the couch. I'd replay every detail, the warmth under my hand, the way Ethan's eyes widened, the silent approval in Harry's gaze from across the room. I felt ashamed for even thinking about it so much, for letting it occupy so much space in my head. But there was also this nagging curiosity, a pull I couldn't ignore. What did it mean that I felt this way? What did it say about me, about us, that I wasn't entirely repulsed by the idea of doing it again? I tried to push it down, to focus on the mundane tasks that usually grounded me, but it was like a splinter under my skin, impossible to ignore. By the time Saturday rolled around again, My nerves were a live wire. Ethan showed up at our door just as the sun was dipping low, casting golden streaks through the windows. He looked hesitant, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes darting around like he wasn't sure he should even be here. I couldn't blame him. I felt the same way. He sat down on the couch to game with Harry, barely speaking at first, the silence between us heavy with unspoken questions. But Harry, as always, took charge of the atmosphere. With a sly grin, he made a casual reference to last week, a little nudge that made it clear this wasn't just a one-time thing. His words sliced through the tension like a knife, and I saw Ethan's shoulders stiffen, his gaze flickering toward me for just a moment before snapping back to the screen. My own pulse quickened, a mix of dread and anticipation churning in my chest. I joined them in the living room after a while, unable to stay away despite the voice in my head telling me to keep my distance. I settled on the couch, closer to Ethan than I needed to be, the space between us crackling with an energy I couldn't name. Harry noticed immediately, his eyes glinting with that same mischievous pride. He started directing things, his voice calm but commanding. It's a few months into this strange new rhythm we've fallen into, and I'm standing in the kitchen on yet another Saturday, the familiar scent of melted cheese and salty chips wafting through the air as I prepare the usual spread for Harry and Ethan's gaming session. The living room is already set up like a second home to Ethan now. He's here every weekend, sprawled on the couch with a controller in hand, his laughter mingling with Harry's over the roar of digital battles on the screen. The coffee table is cluttered with empty soda cans and half-eaten bowls of snacks, the hum of the console fan a constant undercurrent to their banter. It's all so routine, so oddly normal, that it almost masks the undercurrent of tension that's been building in me. Almost. There's a heaviness in my chest today, a growing unease about how comfortable this has all become, how the lines we've blurred don't seem so shocking anymore. I catch myself staring out the window, the late afternoon sun painting the garden in golden hues. And I wonder when this stopped feeling like a game and started feeling like a part of who we are. I'm still lost in that thought when Harry steps into the kitchen, his footsteps quiet but purposeful. I turn to face him, expecting a casual comment about the game or a request for more snacks, but the glint in his eye stops me cold. It's that same look he had months ago when this all started, a mix of excitement and something darker, something that makes my pulse quicken before he even speaks. He leans in close, his voice a hushed whisper, as if the walls themselves might overhear. "I've been thinking," he says, his tone charged with an energy that sets my nerves on edge. "We've been playing it safe in the living room, but what if we took things further, really pushed the boundaries this time?" My breath catches, and I feel my grip tighten on the edge of the counter as he continues, his words painting a picture that's both daring and unsettling. He suggests moving beyond the casual setup we've had, inviting Ethan into more personal spaces of our home, spaces that have always been just ours. He hints at scenarios where the dynamic shifts even more, where he'd orchestrate every move, every interaction, with a control that feels both thrilling and suffocating. It's not just about fleeting moments anymore. It's about creating a whole new reality, one where the lines between what's pretend and what's real dissolve completely. His idea is bold, audacious, a step into territory I hadn't even dared to imagine, and it hangs in the air between us like a challenge. I stand there, frozen, as his words sink in. My mind is a storm, a chaotic swirl of emotions I can't untangle. There's fear, raw and sharp, clawing at me, whispering that if I go down this path, I might lose myself entirely, that I might not recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror. There's guilt, heavy and bitter, reminding me of the vows I made to Harry all those years ago. Vows that feel like they're fraying at the edges with every step we take into this unknown. I think of our life before this, the quiet predictability of it, the safety of our routines, And I ache for that simplicity. But then there's something else. Something I'm ashamed to even acknowledge. A dark, magnetic pull. A fascination with the power and thrill of what Harry's proposing. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind howling around me, daring me to jump just to feel the rush of the fall. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears, my knuckles white from gripping the counter as if it's the only thing keeping me grounded. I don't know if I want to scream at him to stop, to end this before it consumes us, or if I want to let myself be swept away by the current to see just how far this can go. I'm still wrestling with that internal battle when I hear the faint knock at the door, signaling Ethan's arrival. My stomach twists into knots as I force myself to move, to act like everything's normal, like I don't have all the answers. The weeks and months following that pivotal conversation with Harry in the kitchen have been a slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew about myself, about us, about the life we've built. I'm standing here now, months later, in the same kitchen where it all began to shift, the late afternoon light still streaming through the window, catching the dust motes in a lazy dance. The scent of marigolds from the garden outside drifts in on a warm breeze, but it doesn't soothe me like it used to. My hands are busy with a dish towel, folding and unfolding it absent-mindedly, as if the repetitive motion could somehow untangle the mess inside my head. I've been trying to make sense of where we've landed, Harry, Ethan, and me, in this strange, unspoken arrangement that's become our new normal. After that day when Harry suggested pushing things further, I didn't jump in head first. I couldn't. The fear and guilt were too heavy, anchoring me to a version of myself I was desperate to hold on to. But I didn't shut it down either. I let the idea linger, let it simmer in the quiet moments between us. And over time, bit by bit, we did move into uncharted territory. Not in a reckless, all-at-once way, but in small, deliberate steps that felt like testing the temperature of water before diving in. We invited Ethan into spaces of our home that were once sacred, places where the walls held only our memories. There were evenings where boundaries softened, where Harry's quiet encouragement nudged me into moments of closeness with Ethan that left my heart racing with a mix of thrill and shame. I'm not going to paint a vivid picture of those encounters. Some things are better left to the imagination. But let's just say there were times when the air between us grew charged, when a simple touch or a lingering glance became something more, something that danced on the edge of what I'd always considered right or wrong. At first, each step felt like a betrayal, not just of the life I'd built with Harry, but of who I thought I was. I'd lie awake at night, long after the house had gone quiet, staring at the ceiling and wondering how I'd let myself get here. I'd think about the framed photos on our walls, the smiles frozen in time from years past, and I'd feel this ache in my chest, a longing for the simplicity we'd left behind. But there was another side to it, one I couldn't ignore no matter how hard I tried. There was a rush, a kind of electricity, in stepping outside the lines we'd drawn for ourselves. It was like discovering a part of me I didn't know existed, a part that craved the unknown, the forbidden. And Harry. Oh, Harry seemed to thrive on it. His eyes would light up with a kind of pride I hadn't seen in years, like he was watching a story unfold exactly as he'd scripted it. He'd whisper to me after Ethan left, his voice thick with excitement, asking how it felt, pushing me to admit to the thrill even as guilt gnawed at me. Ethan, for his part, seemed caught in his own storm of emotions. There were times I'd catch a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a hesitation that told me he wasn't entirely sure what this was either. But he kept coming back, weekend after weekend, drawn into this web we'd spun. I don't know if it was curiosity or something deeper, something he couldn't name any more than I could. We never talked about it outright, not really. It was all in the silences, the glances, the way the air shifted when we were all in the same room. And over time, that tension became a kind of rhythm, a pulse that ran beneath the surface of our interactions, as familiar as the hum of the gaming console or the clink of soda bottles on the coffee table. Now, months later, I'm still trying to reconcile the woman I was with the woman I've become. I look at Harry sometimes, sitting in his recliner, controller in hand, laughing with Ethan over some virtual victory, and I wonder if he feels the weight of this. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.